I see you struggle. I see you suffer and desperately taking defeat after defeat, despite the fact that you put in the effort and want it badly. Your money isn't going up, your bad habits just won't be overridden by the good ones for more than a week. Well, I could tell you that you are just a pathetic, lazy, whiny fool who won't get it together, or that you don't work hard enough, or that it's not your destiny. But none of that is going to give you a solution to why that actually is. Potentially. Because no, not everyone who can't reach their desires is lazy. I mean, some people are, but that's on them. But sometimes we simply don't realize one crucial thing when it comes to personal success, which is deeply connected to human psychology and subconscious mechanisms that make us behave in a way that simply is not serving our achievement. And that is the suspicion that you might be working towards the wrong goal. Now hear me out. I identified there are commonly two types of wrong goals people could be working towards. One is working for something you don't actually desire, something you don't actually subconsciously see yourself in. That can happen to all of us sometimes. Or the second, which I will be focusing on today, maybe your goals are too realistic. Shocking, I know, like what do you mean too realistic? That sounds very counterintuitive. Isn't it more likely to reach goals that are realistic? Disclaimer, this is a nuanced topic and does not apply to every single situation out there. Sometimes you have to do the opposite and need to set realistic goals in order to build a sense of trust in yourself. But oftentimes, easier to achieve, more realistic goals can hold you back. There is a psychological note here that prevents you from getting what you want when you are too down to earth with your plans. And that thought I picked up in a book titled The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. This book gives you some interesting insights and tips on how to maximize your free time while also not sliding into financial ruin, and can be an overall fun thing to read if you take it with nuance and don't try to make every little pinpoint about yourself. However, I have to mention that this book is not a particularly scientific source, and most things I say are based on experience and observation. And honestly, in practicality, sometimes that is all we need. If it is working for me, works for the people around me, and somehow works for you, then that can be enough. When you set yourself a goal that is easier to reach, that oftentimes does not bring the needed motivation, drive, energy, and consistency for you to actually succeed. Your brain is not stimulated enough to bring you physically to do what is required right now. Also, when you portray this hypothetical journey on a two-dimensional scale, the end goal on the right corner, the starting point on the left, the in-betweens will turn out to be relatively marginal on a big scale. However, your brain will see this big chunk of a spectrum and feel a sense of burden, and every step there is to take, feel overwhelmed and stop you from even trying. But if you compress all of that, while at the same time extending the line on the right, these steps will seem smaller and smaller, and so by reframing what this work that is to be done is, trick your brain into believing that earning these $100,000 is just the first baby step and nothing extraordinary. That's why I've heard so many times from people in financial business that earning $1 million is actually harder than earning $10 million. Well, okay, it depends on the exact context here. Plus, there are other factors that are responsible for this, but the mindset itself shouldn't be overlooked still. Maybe your more achievable goal is not enough for your true desires. Thus, subconsciously, you are not motivated enough to put in the needed effort. Which leads me to an interesting theory I stumbled upon while researching this topic, and that is Locke's goal-setting theory. Edwin Allen Locke, American psychologist, examined the science of psychology behind goal-setting and its success in the 1960s, studied this topic for many decades, and defined the goal-setting theory of motivation, together with his colleague Latham. Different ideas and achievement factors are pointed out in this theory, such as defining making goals measurable, choice, effort, persistence, but also commitment, feedback, and challenge. Goal-setting theory is built on the premise that individuals will do well if they set difficult goals for themselves. In their research, Latham and Locke found that people who have more difficult but attainable goals perform better than those who have less difficult goals. Difficult yet attainable goals help people to sustain and spur performance. So apparently, more challenging, hard to achieve goals are more motivating to us because they carry more value to us. Valuing something that is not easy to attain. Primitive but real. So the recipe for goal achievement is basically motivation plus value. Have you ever thought of something being special because you went through a lot of struggle to get there? That sounds very familiar to me. To give you some examples from my life, currently I have a very expensive gym membership for more than a year now, and it's the first time in my life I was so consistent with visiting the gym like 2 or even 3 times a week. Because I mean, I'm paying so much for it, I have to use it, but therefore I see the best results because of this gym membership and because of my consistency in going there. Or for me, things like staying in shape, I don't only do that for the number on my scale now, which is not healthy either way, by the way, and it's not very sustainable either. But I do it for health, for style, for feeling good inside my body, and also for kind of an ego push, I'm gonna be honest there. Or I'm doing AMVs for my music. That's how I promote my own music, and I started generating good results because I put so much effort into this, and seeing this pay off motivates me to do more of that. Or even writing this script. I'm not doing this just for clout on YouTube or to feel like an influencer or just to do a video because it's due, but I'm writing it for my own self-reflection, for practice, for self-education about interesting topics, for sharing experiences, for building an audience, making others feel relatable, making a living in the long run. I would not be standing here, camera, mic and lights on, prepped and dressed like this, just for clout and just because the videos do. Or because I want my 200 views and 3 more followers. I actually envision myself to be bigger than that, and that statement alone gives me an intrinsic pressure, positive pressure, to keep my word to myself and actually do something about it. And to be honest, it would be very embarrassing if 15 years from now I was looking back at myself and see a pathological liar. So I'd be very grateful if you help me avoiding this by subscribing and sharing this video with potential viewers. Thinking of having $10 million actually sounds more fun than having just $1 million, if you truly visualize that. It gives your brain a more positive and special stimulus. At least that's what I feel. It's just much more exciting, let's be real. Of course, this is not just about money. There are a great many things this can be applied to. It's just very important for you to get behind that mental process and understand the why and the how. Then reframe your specific goal and never forget that goal. Because even if you eventually won't make it to the $10 million after all, I bet you won't say no to $3 or $4 million either. The star will probably make you almost as happy and proud as the moon would.